Okay, here's Miss Leung. How would you like to pronounce your name? Lung or Leung?
Eva.
Leung?
Eva.
Eva Leung. All right. So, what should we talk about?
Well, I mean, something that a lot of people have always wondered about, myself including, or included,
Okay,
is how do
let me
we,
take one and interject something here. My left ear is still a little bit blocked, so you may have to talk a little bit slower. Could you repeat that again, please?
yeah, I'm wondering how it would be. Are there any tips that you could give me or whoever's listening in terms of how to influence people? How can we communicate more powerfully with them and have them see our sides? Because sometimes I notice when I talk to people,
Okay, that's good enough. Right.
yeah, I mean, it's not that it becomes a fight, but
Okay.
you can tell there's a little tension, and so maybe you can address that.
Okay, the first thing you need to realize is that the answer to a question is equal to how you put the question. The longer the question, the more complicated it gets, the longer it is to remember the essence of it. Now, I happen to remember your question, and at first, the first part is fine. And that is a very simple question to answer. To have power in communication, you just have to be who you truly are. That is the answer.
And so, if who it is that you're communicating with is different than you, or they don't want to accept your opinion, or they're being slightly difficult to communicate with, some people they're not open to hearing other opinions.
That's right.
How do you cope with that?
Well, that it's not open, that's their problem, not yours.
Well, let's say you're trying to convince them of something. Let's say you want something from them.
Convince people in this game. This is what the world is doing, which is very, very wrong. That's why we have a planet which is about to fall to pieces. There's no convincing of anything. Each one of us is an individual planet. We are a universe, each one of us. And it is not my place to convince you of anything. In fact, I'm asking you right now, don't believe anything I say. In fact, I like to paraphrase Ayn Rand. Questions, yes. Arguments, no. I've given those up a long time ago. And it even comes out as a little poem, even rhymes. So, whatever I say is to make you think. Because when it deals with physical things, there is teaching. For example, in order for me to teach you to sing, I can teach you many tricks, technical, physical tricks that you must know in order to practice and have a good voice. But when we're dealing with the metaphysical side of life, I can't give you those answers. They all have to come from you. And all the answers are within you. You have to think about them. However, the problem is this. You have been given so many answers from everybody. You believe everybody. All your books, all your college professors, even me, believe no one. Listen to what they say, come to your own conclusions on your own, which are not conclusions, because a conclusion is an end, and there's no end to understanding. So, you continue observing, listening, applying, and see if it's true for you.
Okay, so on that thread and on that note, I will try that in the future. If it looks like I'm having futile conversation with someone, I won't try so hard to have them come my
I
way.
interrupt you there. You said,
Yeah.
I will try. There's no trying. If you try, you fail. You either do it or you don't do it. If you do it, that means you understand it. If you don't do it, if you don't understand it, it's better not to do it.
Well, the reason I wanted to clarify was because sometimes I feel, let's just use a simple, silly example. If I want someone to accompany me to the ice cream shop because I'm in the mood for ice cream, and they just say no. But let's say I want to clarify an extra detail. Oh, Michael Jackson's going to be there, the President of the United States is going to be there. And I didn't have a chance to communicate that. And I wanted to. Do you understand what I'm saying? Sometimes I feel like people don't have all the facts and don't have all the clarification. It's fine if they decide to say no, but if I didn't have a chance to even say that because they weren't open to listening to me, what strategy would you give me?
Strategy. No strategy whatsoever. If they don't want to listen to you, that's it. That's their problem, not yours. Make life simple. We are trying to use force in everything we do. Getting somewhere, getting ahead, getting that ice cream cone. Michael Jackson is going to be there. Who's Michael Jackson? Who cares about Michael Jackson? He's just another universe like me. That's all. Hey, if he wants to go because Michael Jackson is there, I'd go too because I like Michael Jackson. Of course, he's in heaven now.
Right. So, okay. Well, let me use another example because maybe this is a more real life example. Let's say I have a sales job and I have a quota to meet. It's the end of the month. I may get fired. So I'm trying to convince whoever this manager is to buy my services. And clearly, you know, it's one thing if they heard everything and they don't want to do it, they don't want to buy it, they're not interested, it's not going to help them. But let's suppose there's extra information I wanted to get in there. Then how would you approach it?
I don't know. Your question is too long and complicated. I don't know where to start. So, I think I remember most of it. You have no right to change anybody's mind. You can try if you want to. All you have to do to win in life, believe me, you can do this yourself, you know. But if you are enmeshed in this life of getting ahead for the end, there's nothing at the end. It's a lie. You have to live in the present moment. And that is the only way to be who you truly are. And if you are who you truly are, you don't have to convince anybody.
Okay, I will definitely, absolutely keep that in mind to 10 more degrees than I've ever had it. To you know, 10 times more than I've done. And I really will try to be present to that. But let's suppose I'm stressed out because I have kids and I need to make the rent. And basically, you know, this paycheck that's coming up is going to be contingent on whether or not I can convince these people to at least give me a shot in hearing my presentation. And, you know, I'm obviously confused and don't know what to do. And maybe I'm not acting like myself or not able to be myself. So then what would you say? I mean, it's wonderful to say be yourself.
The answer to that has been given to you already twice.
Be more yourself is what you said.
You are who you are. Look, listen to me carefully. Your last class had to do with developing or the attainment of self-love. I have found through research and personal revelation that that is what's missing, is self-love. Because our minds were conditioned to dislike ourselves. These minds, our minds have been conditioned to dislike ourselves from the age of 8 years old to 45. Now, in order for you to attain self-love, which is the answer to all things, when you love yourself, you rub that love off on others. So there's nothing for you to do except be who you are. If I was in a situation like that, in fact I have been. I had 4 children, and the people in the high school in which I was teaching were real jerks, politicians. Not all politicians are jerks, but these were. Not the director of supervisor of music. He was a fine guy. He listened to my story. I said, I am in charge of 7 schools, starting bands in 7 schools. And this principal in this little school, I will not mention any names right now, was complaining my shoes were dirty from the snow. Also, in order to befriend the children who loved me and I loved them, I sat on the desk and sang and played the guitar with them. He said I shouldn't sit on a desk. Therefore, sir, this is not my place. It doesn't go with my philosophy of life. So when something doesn't go with your philosophy of life, pull out. And fortunately, there are enough people out there, just enough, that agree with your way of looking at things. And you are who you are. That is the key. And if you are who you are, you love yourself, because everything about you is benevolent, but you don't know that because they took advantage of you. They put all kinds of lies in your head. For example, take sex. I mean, any child from the age of 8 to the age of 45 is full of sexual guilt. For what? Simply because they were told lies. Lies. So that is what you should be concerned with, is how to eliminate the false ego, which is inflated theories about yourself, which you brought upon yourself in order to be able to fit a society of lies. That's number one. You eliminate that as much as possible and be you truly are. Apply the square deal, which begins with daily asking yourself. Apply honesty with self and reality, and uses those 5 questions, the first of which is, who am I? What am I doing here? And the other thing is, as you do this, you become more and more who you are. And the more you become who you truly are, minus the false stuff, you start loving yourself automatically. There's nothing to do. It's a matter of understanding. That's all.
You know, it's interesting because since I'm from Miami, I was raised in this Asian background. A lot of my relatives were from communist China, and here in Miami there are a lot of people from communist Cuba. So this whole mentality, American people in general have a strong mentality about self. They don't have as many family members, so they definitely, I think, there's a focus more on themselves from the last, few decades or whatnot, 5, 6, 7 decades. And so I wonder, when you were growing up, if your generation or your childhood was filled with that type of a philosophy, or did you develop that from hearing your father inculcate that into you, or was it something that you picked up later in life, years later in life?
Well, some things, the childhood in another country, in this case I was born on the island of Madeira, was worse than here. Because over there, I won't tell you examples because it hurts too much. Not me, but it's not very pretty. Now, I happened to be lucky in one area, and that was that I had a father who was a very spiritual man, not religious. Big difference. He was a very spiritual man, and at 6 years of age, he initiated me. And I've been on this path all my life, but I couldn't understand why I couldn't relate to other people. And then many years later, after much pain and tears, I came to realize that I was benevolent. I said to myself, on my first transformation, I can be wrong once in a great while. I can be wrong many times. I can be wrong most of the time, but being wrong all the time, no way. And the minute I realized that, transformation.
And do you remember how old you were at the time?
What's that?
Do you remember how old you were at the time?
Age doesn't mean anything. Anyway, there's another thing you said about
The cultures.
in Europe and other places. It's true that the families are a little bit more close together in the other countries, but not necessarily better, because there's a lot of aberration in large families that are close knit together. They don't have, for example, anything. They complain about each other, and but this is true of anybody, any place, even when you don't have long, big families. So again, the answer to a peaceful existence is knowing yourself to the point where you fear no one. And it takes a while, because in order to reach that point, you have to realize why you are or were the way you were or are. And that's where the square deal comes in.
So imagine it must be really a challenge, because even when you're from the same family, the same culture, the same country, there's still so many differences. So imagine when people go to a different country and there's all sorts of these other cultural misunderstandings or race or economic misunderstandings. There's just so many levels. So I suppose if people understood themselves better, then there'd be more peace in general.
Yeah, not only that, but you're talking about customs. That has nothing to do with the spiritual part of man. All answers lie on the spiritual part, not on the physical part. Look, society, existence, according to science, is probably 14 billion years old. And the greater number of humans always followed each other without asking questions. When they came across a problem, they went to the local priest or the local witchcraft man, and some were good and some were not so good. And they told you the answers to certain questions, and you believed them, and you've been living those lies all of your life. And as excuse me, as long as someone told you something and you believed in it, then there's no use to think. You're not going to think about it anymore.
No, and it's true with all these very charismatic leaders or shaman or politicians or whoever, even family head members. It would be hard to distinguish if you're young, especially, what's possibly true or not true. And so, yeah, I guess it's good that in adulthood we explore this a little more and decide for ourselves what is actually accurate, what does not fit in our lives, and it's all good.
Go deeply into yourself, because all truth is in yourself. I don't even read books anymore. Out of 10,000 books that are written every year, let's say, only one, maybe 1.5, is anything real to say, because everything is geared towards money. People want food, money, sex, fame, power. That's what they want. There's no the end. They're always trying to get to the end of things. Tomorrow. No, now is this moment. So the difference between individuals in England and in France and other countries and the United States is just customs. A custom that you get into. If you scratch your nose over here in the United States, you'll always have that custom of scratching your nose. And the guy in France scratches the left side of his head, and that's the custom. It's nothing. It's a physical thing.
Okay, well, let's say I'm just playing devil's advocate just to converse and chat. I agree with what you say.
You have to be yourself. You can't play the devil's advocate or any. If your question is real from the heart, that's how you learn.
I totally agree with what you say. I've noticed that a lot of people resonate with people who truly express, let's say, their art. When they're singing, they say they can feel that authenticity, or they can notice it when an artist paints something. People can sense it, and
Very good example.
I guess times. what the question was sometimes there may be people whose values are off because their parents may have been misguided. Let's say they believe in stealing or extorting money from people or company, or they believe in killing people, and they go inside and think they're right. So how would you help the world ameliorate that situation?
You can't help the world. The only way you can help the world is to drop out from it. Then you can help it.
Okay.
As
So
as long as you're connected to what's going on in the world, you can't do anything because you're living in an apparated cesspool.
I mean, there are geniuses and very inspiring
That's
people.
all outside stuff.
Uh-huh.
Sure, my son is 3 points below genius. He happens to be a great guy. Now there are geniuses that have the spirit, the metaphysical and the physical side well balanced. Often not quite, because a genius is so sensitive that any little breeze will knock it off balance. So, but genius, knowledge, degrees, those things don't mean anything.
No, even someone talented, let's say a prodigy piano player or someone, there's always very inspiring people.
Of course.
And they're,
of course.
Yeah,
An
slight.
example with Michael, last tape we did, well, take Michael Jackson. I was always curious about Michael Jackson. I liked the guy, but at first I didn't pay much attention to him, And then one day, I got a record here called Music and Me, which he recorded when he was, I think, 13 years old. It's a work of art. I couldn't believe it. How can a child 13 years old do this? So I started observing him and studying him. And his voice was nothing. It was a little sissified voice. But there was feeling. He was real.
Right.
He was real.
Right. That's why people were so connected to him. Mm-hmm.
Because even though the auditorium is full with 1,000 people, let's say, and they're all aberrated, they're all have an ego as big as the Empire State Building, which is probably the truth. Even when a person has that false ego to a great extent, there's still something inside of him that whatever somebody else is doing that is real within his own performance reaches and goes into that inner part of the other person who's got all the aberrations and all the ego, and it responds. And that's how art helps other people. Not because it's pretty and you can do a little trills and no. Well, of course you have to have a good technique. It's your interpretation. You have to understand. Interpretation in the arts is your understanding of the message from the inside. But people know this because it's so tricky. You might ask, well, how can I close my eyes and sit in a chair and think about this and get the answer? Well, you're not going to do it the first time, nor the second, nor the third, maybe not even in a year or two. But you keep doing it, and eventually you will get your revelations. Because, and it's very simple. Look, the science, I love to watch debates. And there's all these scientists with all kinds of degrees and everything. And I like some of them, I really do. I'm jealous because they're so good in speaking. I like them. But that's so simple. Who beats your heart? You don't beat your own heart. Go ahead. Go ahead. Are you breathing now? I hope so. Are you digesting your food right now or what?
Not right this second, but I assume it digested already. I haven't eaten in a while.
Yeah? So what's going on? Are you breathing? Are you controlling your breathing? Who breathes for you? Now the scientists would say, well, it's the DNA, the quanta this, the quantum this, the quantum. Hey, and they keep going further and further to the smallest and the smallest and smallest particle to find out what is this power that makes you breathe. Well, it's very simple. Go out there and spend a couple of $100 on a good microscope and put a blood cell under the microscope and look at it, and you'll see what I'm talking about. There's two intelligences in there. One is male and one is female, because everything in the physical universe is a duality, male and female. That's the whole power. And you'll see in that cell what I call energy, which is has a physical, quantitative demonstration, and the other, which I call force, cannot be measured in terms of vibration. It's consciousness. And someday, if you'd like to have a discussion about consciousness, we can engage in it. It's a lot more complex, but it's not difficult. And that's who we are, consciousness.
Well, let's say I know we're running out of time here, but to raise our consciousness to the next level, what would you suggest? Just sitting there and contemplating and thinking and perceiving? Or
just that. There are many things that go along with it. You have a physical side too. First, you have to be healthy. You have to eat. You have to have enough money coming in to pay your bills. Let's be practical. Otherwise, you're a fanatic. There are many mystical fanatics in the world. Many religious fanaticals, many spiritual fanatics. So you have to have these two things balanced. Fortunately, the metaphysical side, the spiritual side, which I consider to be this one here, fortunately is, forgot the concept here. Both of them have to be balanced. Oh yes, unfortunately you cannot see it, but you can feel it. Because I'm not breathing. I don't even know what I'm saying. It's all coming through. So you learn things, then those things become part of you. And
it's like driving. It just becomes, something unconscious almost that you do, I guess.
Well, unfortunately, for those out there is unconscious, not for those who walk the path, because everything they do, they are conscious. That's why they don't have accidents.
No, I guess what I meant to say was, I was trying to equate it to, let's say, a piano player who practiced so much that they just knew how to drum up anything or
establish
anything. Yeah, that's really what I meant in that sense.
Establish those habits, of course.
Right.
But they establish those habits self-determinedly. That doesn't just happen. They have thought and intention behind it. I know many great artists.
Now you yourself as well. You're very adept with the musical instruments, so you understand that. I guess when they say that you can end up getting into the zone only once you've practiced so much that it becomes something that you're doing unconsciously almost, right? Like you can practically do it in your sleep, as the expression goes, I guess. I mean, not physically, but
it becomes part of you.
Right.
So that it's a very strange thing. When I started fooling around a lot of this stuff, I was having a debate that lasted for several years. Are we unconscious when we perform, or are we conscious? So I went to the famous Rose Coffee House in Boston to perform every Monday night. And I said, okay, now I'm going to be absolutely conscious. And when I got very conscious, my fingers would not go to the right places. So you must become, here's the secret, you must become unconscious under your own conscious self-determinism.
Right. I understand.
And then you allow the body to do what you've taught it. But most people don't like their own bodies. So the body does not respond successfully.
Hmm.
So that's another thing why people get sick. I've been sick the past year, but not because of that. It was just a little accident I had and it got infected. And I had to have a small surgery on my toe. And would you believe that that little surgery, which cost me $430, which I consider extremely reasonable, I
Yeah.
paid the doctor myself with a check, and then all these bills started coming. I didn't even know that I didn't have insurance, right? And then somehow these people lie. Would you believe that after I got my Medicare B or whatever it is, they charged the government on my behalf a little less than $250,000.
Crazy. Wow. Yeah, you told me that before.
They
That's
wanted $1,800 more from me after I paid them $5,000 before that.
so exorbitant. I mean, it definitely needs to be rectified, this whole healthcare system. So at least,
It will never be, nothing will ever be rectified because the earth is not conducive. The earth and the man's brain is not conducive to that sort of thing. He has to balance the physical with the metaphysical. And then there would be no more problems in the world. It's very simple. And as I told Michael the other day in a conversation, if you applied the square deal, let's say from the kindergarten, 6 years old, let's say, and every day, of course, the teachers wouldn't know what to do with it because the teachers are totally materialistic. They think materialistically. That's the problem. But children love philosophy. I brought my children on philosophy. Every one of them is doing very well. I see a child, I talk to him. I take a real interest. When I see a child, I don't see just a kid. I see an angel, a real angel.
mm,
And I said, Johnny, where do you think you came from? Oh, I came from up the street. No. I mean, where did you come from? To your mom? Or, excuse me. You ask them philosophical questions.
mm,
They love it. And you never say yes or no. No,
just
you're
train
wrong.
them to think.
Oh, you're right. Oh, John, he's got all the answers. No, you don't know the answers. You got to start. No, everybody's got the right answer. You're going to develop children that will go out, and they don't have no need to prove to the adults their power. And the way they prove their power is through drugs and through crime, because they can't be who they are. They fill their heads with lies.
Mm. Yeah, we're definitely slightly living. We've always been living in a slightly warped society, so it's just a matter of evolving and having the whole community and society get to the next level where people care less about certain things and start focusing on other things. So
when you see this stuff that we're talking about, when you see it clearly, I'll give you this thought as we end this conversation. As you see this, as you think about it, and if you see there's any truth in it, why don't you don't join the world, don't go causes, change this and change. No. All you got to do is help one person. Tell them what it's about. And you're not going to know the answers in 3 months or 4 months, or maybe it'll take a little while. And then after a while, you'll notice that you're getting more work, that people are attracted to you, that you can direct them for their own benefit. So think about that and get out there and do the best you can to individuals, not to the world. Okay?
okay.